in the lab. I mean, things have to be done, right? And it's probably not a good idea for me to say, here's what I think. I wouldn't trust me, but I'd certainly trust you. I mean, you know a lot about what's going wrong. So this is really critically important. This is critically important, and most companies do a very poor job of this. They don't really understand how to go about it. We talk about this a lot, and you read lean literature, and they say, let's do Kaizen and get together with people and fix things, but they really don't tell anybody how to do it. And so there's a number of companies, and they have many different ways. Well, I have one here that has been tried, true, and proven. And so I want to kind of share that with you, what the experience is with this. But before we get there, I probably ought to put this in. I want to show you a couple videos. You've probably seen Undercover Boss, some of you. I want you to watch this and then think about it.
Out of touch with what's going on in their own companies, but some bosses are willing to take extreme action to make their businesses better. Each week, we follow the boss of a major corporation as they go undercover in their own company. This week, the boss of America's largest trash company, Waste Management, a $13 billion business with 45,000 employees and 20 million customers. The boss is going to trade in his executive office and expense account for a hard hat and a bagged lunch. He'll assume a new identity.
Good morning, Randy. I'm Janice. Nice to meet you.
And pose as a new recruit. Do you know where we get paid?
Okay, I had to break this into little sections.
So I think we're going to have a pretty big group today. I think most people are in town. We're about to go into our weekly senior leadership meeting. I'm going to tell them I'm going to go into their operation undercover. It's going to be a big surprise. I'm sure everyone is wondering what is going on here. Well, what I'm going to be doing, I'm actually going to go out into the operations, into the field, and I'm going to go undercover. Are you serious?
This is going to give me the opportunity to really see what it's like to work at Waste Management. I'm setting out targets and cost-cutting goals from my office. I want to see if the targets are realistic on the ground. If I'm able to pull this off, I may be able to revolutionize some of our processes. It can make us more efficient.
Okay, you can hit the next one. That kind of set it up. So this guy, he's CEO of Waste Management. It's a huge company. He's going to go figure out what's wrong. And then this is the last little clip of that. Oops.
Let's go to the...
I'm Larry O'Donnell, and for the last 7 days, I've been undercover at Waste Management. And I met some great people when I was out there. Let's take a look.
I call it the battlefield. Hey, man, there you go.
Good morning. How are you? Awesome. Good. Are you going to work, I see?
What is your job title?
Well, I have a couple of titles, actually.
Take too long, Randy. Take too long. Nice work with you. Glad you came to Waste Management to try it out, but you just don't have it.
You know, in my role, there's a lot of policies that I put out there, and you all have to live with them. I feel more of a connection with the folks that do the really hard jobs at this company. I'm going to be a different manager because now I have a whole new appreciation of the impact that some of my decisions can have on you folks.
That he was going to have a change of heart for us out there in the trenches. That really made a change in my life right there. Just to hear that coming from the top.
Tears came to my eyes. I was overwhelmed. I really was.
Today was just amazing, and I really feel good about what we accomplished. This is an experience that I think is really going to change my life.
Okay, does anybody have a tissue? All right. Did anybody see any impressions on that? I'm just going to tell you up front, this is a terrible way to do continuous improvement. Anything wrong with what you saw there? Pardon me? You are brilliant. Yeah, he randomly wanders up on 5, 6 people, and they're loaded with problems. And he picks those 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 data points, and he fixes them. And then everybody hugs and feels good about themselves. Well, what does it tell you about the other 100,000 people? I guess they're going to have to wait for the CEO to interview each one of them. Essentially what's wrong is they really don't have a structure in place to tap into the people that do the work. And we talk about this in lean, right? Process is king. Process drives improvement. You have to give authority to the process to drive improvement. It's got to be the people that do the work. They don't have that. So they have to wait for a CEO to come and talk to them because they don't have any kind of way to affect the system or improve things. They don't have the authority. So they live with their problems. And that just means the other 999,000 are dealing with theirs. In most companies, if you go to them and you talk about this, and I'm sure some of you have been out there in industry and talked to some people, this is typical. This is not a joke. You go out, especially in automotive, a lot of times you talk to automotive companies and you're talking about doing some things to improve. These people have their heads down and they have trouble looking up at you to even talk about changing something because they're so overwhelmed they can't keep up. They can't fix things. They don't have the time to do it. Yes?
I was just going to tell you, when I was working at the University of Alabama Huntsville, running an NEP center up there, we were going out helping companies do Kaizen and teaching them lean. I went to the executive VP of the company and he told me at that time, we're too busy to try to improve. If you want to do something, we do something over this other area. It doesn't really matter. And then 6 months later, they were covered up in business. They were covered up in business and too busy to improve. 6 months later, go back and all the business is gone somewhere else because they couldn't get out the door and they're closing their doors, so they couldn't improve. They didn't have any funds to go do anything with it. So if you look at it from the perspective of what that slide right there says, you're going to go out of business.
I'm telling you, this is typical. This is typical. This isn't an unusual problem that needs to be resolved. So isn't it cool, Legos? Anyway, all right. So a continuous improvement system, we must have measurement. I love, from my experience, Pareto's and trends because it helps us make decisions. Why? Because we know what to go after. We can't fix everything. We don't have the resource for everything. But we do need to know where we should focus our efforts. And the trends, what do trends tell us? If we have a trend in the data, what does that tell us? If we're managing. Don't be engineers right now, be managers. We got problems or we're improving. We evaluate our system. Are they fixing things? Is it getting better? If you see your data and you have a problem in your data and it goes straight across, they're not affecting anything. If it deteriorates, problems. You might have to say something like Dick Henneman said to me, Tom, do I have the right guy running this area? Right? But you need that information as a manager to know whether your areas are improving or not. Those are both very powerful. Visual on the floor for all people to see. Everybody needs to know, how are we doing? Lowest level involvement. And when I say lowest, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, it represents process. Process is involved. The people that run the process, that add value, that physically change the product, they must be involved. Management standard work. What is it that managers do every day consistently? What do they do weekly, daily, monthly, and it's scripted to make sure that the organization is addressing problems? Responsibility. Who is going to take care of the problem for us? By name, not department. Larry. Larry's supposed to do this. Larry works for maintenance. Larry represents maintenance, but it's not going to say maintenance. It's going to say Larry because somebody's got to talk to us about it. And accountability. Everybody must perform, just like a sports team, right? By the way, War Eagle. You saw something historic Saturday. They set a lot of records, I think. That was incredible. Measurement, SQDCM, safety, quality, delivery, cost, morale. These are the high-level metrics that drive the organization. And we use this at Chrysler, and I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. SQDCM, I know Chrysler must not have come up with this. And I didn't know where the root was. And you couldn't find it. I mean, I really had trouble finding where this came from, but I've seen it many times. Tata Motors in India, they use this. And a lot of companies I've seen use SQDCM because it's really supposed to encompass the universe. If I have high-level metrics on these categories, the lights get brighter, everybody's happy, products flowing out the door. Because we're driving the Pareto items, we're driving the trends and improving. Anyway, we'll get to where that comes from. I found this in Suzuki's book, The New Shop Floor Management. So I thought, okay, here's some foundation of where this came from. This must be the root of it. He says, define clearly the key items in satisfying customers. And here's this exhibit for the needs of the customer tree. Quality, function, service, cost, operating cost and overhead, and delivery, on-time delivery, lead time, shrink the lead time, be responsive. Okay, so there's QCD. And you'll see QCD in some organizations, and you won't see the S necessarily. It'll be managed separately, and many of them you won't see the M, especially in American companies. It's not that important. Morale. We're paying you. We don't have to work on that. All specific items may be covered under 3 broad headings. If we satisfy our customers continuously with high-quality products or service at less cost and with shorter and more timely delivery than competitors, we should do well. That's that theory. We're covering the universe. We get the ideal high-level metrics in these categories. We can't help but to improve if we have a continuous improvement system. And then Suzuki says, since all employees in the organization may be viewed as customers from the total company point of view, their needs must be satisfied. Therefore, if we had safety and morale to address employee concerns, and he writes it QCDSM. Chrysler wrote it SQDCM. And then I finally found it. This is where this comes from. So this is a discipline, and you'll see it in lean organizations here and there, having these metrics. It's not easy to do, by the way. How easy it is to get data and measurement. And those of you going into senior design, you'll find this out too. Very hard to get good data. Very difficult. If we focus on these 5 items, we should be able to cover most of the major concerns of the organization. Now, for the continuous improvement system, develop area-specific safety, quality, delivery, cost, morale metrics. So if I'm running a crankcase operation as a business unit leader, what are my metrics for my specific area that I measured against? What are my trends? What are my Paretos? And what are my targets? And is it clearly visible to everyone? It's preferable to have more than one measure per category, although one solid metric will suffice. Just give us a measure on one of these categories. Just give us one. Hard to get more than one. It's hard to get one, yes. Trended periodically, the shorter the frequency, the better. Now, I should clarify that a little bit. We use monthly. I kind of like monthly because this isn't a react to the day thing. This is more, how are we doing as a business? Are we improving? Pareto data for each measure, develop a target line for each measure. So when you have your goals and objectives or your performance reviews at the end of the year, or you're managing a large organization, wouldn't it be nice not to have to say, I think Mary does a pretty good job, I think Joe's not so good. Wouldn't it be great if it was perfectly tied to the metric? There's no question about where you are as an employee and how well you perform, or as a manager, because the data's there, it's updated every month. It drives the herd. Targets defined by the performance goals of the area manager, that's the term we use. Determine and define who will update and display the data and at what frequency. Make sure you have integrity in the data system. Make sure that if you're posting this for everybody to walk through and see, it's current, it's relevant, it's updated, it's accurate. And the reason that's in there is because that doesn't happen. It's something that rarely happens well, where these things are consistently updated for people. I think I said that. While data provides evidence of a robust continuous improvement system over time and may drive specific initiatives, the measurement system, this is key. This is key. The measurements, and we'll get into this, must not hijack the process and ignore the voice of the process. In other words, if I have SUDCM metrics in the crankcase department, and over here I have my continuous improvement board that's being driven from the people that work the process, I can't say, oh, look at this data point, we need something on the board to fix that. Because if I do that, I've just taken away the authority from the process to drive what they need. And the reality is, all the improvements, none of them relate to the data typically. They're small. You can never take one of these small little initiatives and say, oh, that's going to fix this. You can take the 10,000 initiatives and greatly impact the data, but you can't tie it to the data. You use the data more as a reference to see how you're performing and to ask questions. And sometimes there are some things that can be specifically affected, but you can't take away the right of the people doing the work to drive improvement. That is a real key point there from experience. So this is a painting by Diego Rivera in the Detroit Institute of Arts, From Floor to Ceiling, large mural that goes on and on. This is Henry Ford's Rouge plant, so I just thought I'd throw that up there. I got this picture in my office on the wall. So voice of the process is what we're looking for. We want to make sure that, now I'm sure when this was painted, they had no say whatsoever in anything. We've talked about that. But you want to make sure the people that are putting the vehicle together or the product together are the ones who have complete authority to drive the system. Nobody can say no. And we'll get to that, except the plant site manager. Because you got to have a trump card. Boy, I hate using that term. Okay, so define a meeting. These are just some rules around it. Define a meeting location that's central to the operation with the following. Create an SQDCM board with the metrics, and then create a continuous improvement board to display issues from the voice of the process. Not exactly necessary, but we like to capture things in the SQDCM format. So we say this initiative would affect quality, and it would also affect delivery, QD. If this is all put in a database, you have your history of all your improvement, all the things you close, the things that are open. So you're capturing things around the format that you're using for the metrics. Just so you know, here's 500 things we fixed, small, but they have impact on these categories. So you have issue, corrective action, open date, close date, target date, status, responsibility. There's a board in the lab. You're all familiar with that. You've seen those up, right? This is what you're going to use in each one of your teams. Now we have 6 items on the board. We'll talk about how we want to do this, but your twin team, you may want to get together in consensus and say, we think these are our top 6 problems. Why we can't get parts out or we have quality issues. What are we going to do, team, to redesign this work or solve this problem to where we can flow product at a much higher rate? And then you will say, this is the issue, we need this, we've opened it on this date, we want to have this complete. When will be a good completion date? Prior to the production run, I would guess, right? Yeah. So, and then who's going to do it? And right now, you see, we kind of didn't really do this properly, right? Team. So I'm going to say, hey, team, and people are going to look around, the ball's going to hit the ground. So you need someone, hey, Joe. Hey, Mary, how are we doing on this one? What do you need? You're speaking for the team. But we have a face, we have a name we can talk to. This is so powerful. I can't stress this enough. We have any of the A3 teams in here? Does this help? Helps quite a bit. You think things would happen if you didn't have it? Wouldn't happen, would it? What did this do to me Saturday? You can speak up. It made me come in and paint the floor with you guys, right? Because I was red and I was embarrassed. It was like, oh. Right, so we had to come in and get paint. I had to go Friday night and get paint. We all got together. We painted the floor in the lab. Why? Because it's red and it's embarrassing. We got to fix it. Without this, do you think I'd have done that? I promise you I wouldn't have. I'd have meant to, but I wouldn't have. Define recurring meeting schedule. Capture the issues of improvement history in a database. This is really good, especially for a larger organization. Here's our history. OSHA's coming in to review us because we had an incident. We're not happy with your safety program here. Well, look at this. Here's 275 things we solved since last year related to safety, and they're all closed. Do you want to read them? It's good to have. Or the CEO's coming in for a review. You guys don't care about quality. Well, I know we're not good enough, but why don't we go through the database? We can show you the initiatives that came from the floor that we resolved that are closed relative to quality. It's really good to have this history. And it's also good for the workforce to show, hey, we're supporting you in what you want. We're fixing problems. Rules of operation, this is really key too. Very key. Attendance. Plant manager must attend the review. So if I go to a company, little company, and I say, you need to go to every review. And they go, well, I'm kind of busy. Well, then don't waste my time. And you're not going to be successful. I'm just telling you. It's my experience. This isn't going to work. Because then people can avoid responsibility. When they know you're standing there and everybody in the organization is mapped to improvement and they've got to explain where they are, trust me, the herd will move. If you decide that this isn't important for you, you can go do other things, whatever they are that are important. And Bob used to say, I have nothing better to do than this. So that was a Bob threat, by the way, but yes.
There's no closing date in this picture.
There should be a close date in the picture, yes. Good point. We don't have a close date on those? Well, we'll reformat them for you. Excellent, good. Responsible person assigned corrective action must attend. Supervisor must attend along with operators effective if possible. So you have people that said, we need this fixed, it's affecting my job, we have a machining problem, I want that on the board, I have authority. That never goes away. Never goes away unless the plant manager says, I'm removing it, the trump card. Now the organization must take care of this. So that person should, if we can get them free from the process, have them attend the review, that's good. Authority. Employee that works the process, adds or removes items and negotiates target date but retains ultimate authority for dates and the issue status. Now think about that. Right? The person that puts the parts together has more authority than anyone in the entire plant except the plant manager. That's crazy, isn't it? Essentially, that's the process. You're giving the process authority. You're trusting the people that work it. And if the people that work it can't be trusted, you do have a plant manager that says, look, you don't need another drinking fountain. We're wiping that one off. That rarely happens, by the way. People adapt to this very well, and you can trust them. Only the plant site manager can remove an issue. Responsible parties should negotiate dates that allow management of their overall responsibility, but they negotiate with the employee. So the one thing you'll see every time this goes, we put this in 3, 4, 5 times. Every time it happens, people go, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do all these things that people are telling us to do with the resource I have. They always do it. They do it every time. So you say to them as a manager, why did you agree to the date? Why don't you just put it out another month? Why'd you do that? Now, the person working in the process might argue or debate it with you, but you agreed to the date. You can manage your resource from that. The reality is I don't want to fix it. I don't want to be told what I have to do, and I'm too busy. But you'll see them start squirming. And this is great. When you see the support organization wringing their hands and squirming, as a manager, you've got something great. Because you're deploying that support to the process, and they're uncomfortable with it. Trust me, it's good. Reviews SUDCM metrics, 5 minutes. Team leader employee talk to open issues, 2 minutes. Responsible party discusses progress towards close state, 2 minutes. Total time, 15, 20 minutes for all issues. So at Chrysler, we had 30-some boards, and Bob visited every single one of them. Now, he had them scheduled across 2 months, but he went to every one of them. So, of course, myself and my manager, we'd be running out to the floor and said, are you okay with the one that you had up here on the board? And you go, well, you know, I told them nobody's brought the parts yet for me. Okay, well, let me see what we can do. Why? Because they know Bob's coming to this board. And Bob will come up to you and hug you. He'll love you, and he'll kill us if we don't get you what you want, right? So we're running around scrambling, making sure the people that work the process get everything they need. Now, again, as long as this method's understood, you don't need the tyrant, right? People can manage the process if they understand it. It works well otherwise. We moved it to Continental, where we made airplane engines, and we're not Bob. We couldn't behave that way, and it worked great. Yes.
Just because you're talking about employee involvement, when you have these meetings where you're deciding what goes on the board, and you know that the employees have problems, typically if they're like working the line or something, they're not attending these meetings.
Oh, yeah, we're not putting things on the board. The employees are.
Well, like, are they a part of the meeting? Are you aware of the problem?
Well, at Chrysler they were, because we had a team leader structure. Okay. And so they usually were available. At Continental, sometimes. But it didn't really affect them because they could say, hey, they'd say, I'm having trouble with my job because. And we would typically say, well, good luck with that. And look at them for a minute, and they go, okay. What that meant was put it on the board. Because if you don't put it there, it's just random whether anybody's going to take care of it for you. So we kept teaching them to do that. Well, they own the board. They put their items on the board. If somebody wants clarification, they go up and say, well, what did you mean by that? Let's talk. But it was their item, and they logged it, and it would be taken care of. But obviously, there's discussion about it. But it's a good question.
Answer the question, though, and Tom's right, there's all different levels of employee involvement in these programs, but the ones that are successful employee available to be part of the solution team and part of the process.
Yeah.
Those that come in and say, yeah, we listen to our employees all the time and we take all of their initiatives and we give them to engineering and they go fix them.
Well, see, and with that, even without involvement, that can't happen, right? Because you work the process, you put your issue on the board, you talk to somebody because they got to give you a date. You put the date on the board, you own the board. If somebody walked up, I mean, at Chrysler, if somebody walked up and changed verbiage on the board, they put themselves at great risk because they're not supposed to touch it. It's not theirs. And that was made real clear to us. So if they log the issue, it's going to get fixed. There's no way around it. And somebody's going to have to come to the operator and say, we don't understand. What is it you mean? So they really genuinely have true authority. It's scary for a manufacturing operation to do that. It almost sounds like communism or something, doesn't it? Anyway, employee update status in the database on the board between meetings. Now, this was at Continental. Here's a scrap review for the entire operation. There's a target line for scrap, the actual, and target actual, what do I got on here? And budget. So we can see how we're performing. This was a director of mine in one shop. There were 2 areas that had a director. Their 2 scores added up to my score. And this is a business unit leader that's running fuel and subassembly. And all the business unit leaders under this guy all add up to his score. So everything cascaded and it all rolled up to a plant level. So at the end of the year, there should be no surprise whether we performed or didn't perform. Obviously, there's discretion there because sometimes your targets are aggressive, right? And as you can see from Passarelli, how well he's doing, you can now see why I'm here teaching at Auburn. That's a joke, by the way. I hope. But cascaded goals are great. So here's our SQDCM board feeding our continuous improvement board. But remember, I don't say, what are we doing about this issue? I don't see it on the board. We don't say that because the issues that are being solved at the floor level are small, and they usually don't relate to the data. You have faith and trust that if the organization's driving improvement, your metrics will improve. Doesn't mean you can't ask. You can ask because sometimes there are issues that are real clear. It may be that engineering has a project they need to implement, and you can ask those questions. But you have the data that's relevant, and you have the process to drive out waste in the operation, and you've given it to the most appropriate people to give it to, the people who have the stethoscope on process that can hear it. They know what's wrong. Nobody else does. So I can't come to your team. I can't go to cell 1 and go, I think I know why you failed. It's probably because of this, so I'm going to do this. That'd just be ridiculous because I don't have the experience that you have. So you must grant the authority to the process level and trust it and support that. And this is the way to do it. So this was our database. These are closed items, green. These are red items behind, by name, not by department. So we can ask people about that. This is time-based. That's why you have all this behind schedule and nothing open. But this told us what was behind, what was open, what had been closed by department. So you can review how your operations supporting continuous improvement with it. Overall plant status. Rolling up 10 boards from 10 different areas. Driving improvement in the organization. So we're not just saying, hey, Kaizen's great. Let's work with people to improve. There's a structure. Very well-defined structure. Now we had some students here. Anybody know Hugh Smith? Wow, we forget so quick. Anyway, Hugh, he's out at Raytheon, I think now? Intel. They developed this process and made it electronic. And this thing's really great. We implemented it at a beer company. What's the one up in Gadsden? Backordy? Yeah. And we're trying to do this at other companies. But one problem with this is a great way to do this because it's on everybody's desktop and you can see the status of the whole organization. And it's programmed around these rules. Problem is, people don't necessarily want to use this. It's not the format that's the problem. It's the whole system of giving authority to the process. People are really frightened to do that. They don't respect the employees enough to trust them to make good decisions. They don't tell you that, but you kind of know that's what it is. This was our schedule at Continental. So we had all these departments and we had them scheduled across the month so that they were all reviewed on a regular basis. And look, and this wasn't because of SESIC, we had a safety board that was separate. We care. So remember, these are the 2 tenets, continuous improvement and respect for people. That's what drives this. We respect people, so we grant the authority to the people who know process better than anyone else. They know every reason why they failed. Give them authority and support what they want. Have a structure in it that does it. Deming.
Of leadership. Which we commonly call supervision. I think that it should be called leadership. Leading people to help them to do a better job, being in management or on the factory floor. Supervision should be replaced by leadership. There's no secret, once again, about what leadership is. What leadership must do is to help people.
Help people. This is pretty interesting. This little interview here tells me that Taiichi Ohno was a lot like Bob. Listen to what he says.
Find that the supervisor is not really looking at his affairs, grab the neck, bring it over to his place.
He worked with Ohno.
Do a circle with the choke, and tell him, you stay in there and have a good look till I come back. Yeah. So everybody got scared and trembled. But
Bob.
And he was true. He was very tough on the managers, but not on the operators.
Remember, I said I love the operator, right? Same thing. The point The point here, I like to use this because people talk about respect for people. I really think, this is my opinion now, so don't write and take notes. I think what that means is that it's a respect for process and the people that work it. And it's tyranny on the people that don't support it. I'm not suggesting you operate that way. But if you heard what he said, I mean, if you watch this whole interview, they were frightened to death of Ono walking in the plant. The managers, the people that work the process, he loved them. Bob would go up to people, he had a microphone, and we had to walk around, there's a whole slew of people, and he'd give it to the team leader, he's laughing, he's hugging them, shaking their hand, he just loves them. Salt of the earth, beautiful. And he'd turn around and look at us if we didn't get them what they needed. Oh, it was ugly. Sounds a little bit like Ono to me. But I may be wrong, that's my opinion. So Herzberg's theory of motivation, I don't memorize it, but it talks about hygiene factors. These are the dissatisfiers if they're not present. Quality of supervision, pay, company policy, working conditions, relations with others, job security. These are the satisfiers. These are things to consider about human behavior if you want a really happy workforce. Because if you're granting authority to the process to solve problems, you probably want a high morale, SQDCM. You want them inspired. Impact of Kaizen. Ishikawa, one of the fathers of quality in Japan, the creator of the fishbone diagram and the 7 quality tools, stated it takes 3 years of small Kaizen to see significant impact in an organization. 3 years. Because we're not talking about huge fixes. We're not talking about pointing at the Pareto top issue and say, how come you don't have something for that? We're talking about trusting people to solve small problems. And it's like a 401k. Doesn't seem like if I contribute to it in 20 years, I'm really going to have that much money. But it's very similar, except the exponential curve starts at about 3 years. Now let me prove it. Okay, I just said that, didn't I? Chrysler Sterling Heights Assembly Plant. This is after Bob implemented this 30, 40 boards across the whole process using this very method, unwritten, no rules, because he didn't have to do that. He could just say, here's how it's going to work, and everybody got it. After 3 years into the implementation of the system described in the presentation, the plant achieved its first perfect build in 40 years. And this was back to Volkswagen days. A perfect build is a car every 51 seconds for 8-hour shift without one lost unit. It was 3 years into the method that we were using. So if you ask anybody, how were you able to accomplish this perfect build? No one could answer it. It's impossible to answer with any kind of initiative because it was the result of thousands of improvements. It was literally slowly unclogging the drain and allowing the product to flow and trusting the people who have perfect knowledge about why it fails and solving their problems. Now this is when we took it down to Continental Motors. This is revenue per head per day, and this is equivalent heads with overtime factored in. So this is when we implemented this system from Chrysler with 10 Chrysler people there. This is 3 years. You notice something happening in the data? Right, Ishikawa, it takes 3 years, right? When asked by the president of Pinson Valley Heat Treating, which we implemented this at Pinson Valley Heat Treating, we took him down there to see the system. How do you explain the improvement? The Associate VP of Manufacturing, Mike Skolnick, stated the results are attributed to the implementation of continuous improvement system, meaning I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't point to anything. It's just the sheer weight of improvement that resulted in great improvement for the organization at 3 years. So coincidentally, or not, we saw it at Chrysler at 3 years. We saw it at Continental at 3 years. Gave complete authority to the process. I'm telling you, complete authority. Scary. So here are my observations. How much time do we have? There's plenty of literature and philosophy touting the importance of continuous improvement. However, there's very little information on how to conduct continuous improvement. The system described above is a structured, standardized, improvement system. Hourly employees were highly measured. Their work expectations are defined by a stopwatch. What about the large management support organization? An added benefit of the system above is how the voice of the process drives the support organization. I contend when you see the support organization wringing hands regarding resource, you are optimizing this critical resource that typically operates at 60% efficiency. That's my feel for it. So you're driving that resource to solve problems, focused on top issues, coming from the process. We don't involve the operator as a gesture of goodwill. We engage the operator because they represent the process. They are the only members of the extended team that can hear the process speak. They know the multitudes of small issues clogging the flow of product. Since the only purpose of manufacturing organization is manage process, not design, a manufacturing organization has no chance to be great without the voice of the process driving the organization. What better way to overwhelm resource than the resource being driven by process? The good sheep. I view all people in an organization, including myself, as good sheep. Without a system, structure, or standard, the good sheep will wander the hillside. They will never, without a shepherd, the system, move from hill A to hill B. They're also far too busy with their job requirements to respond to random requests for support. Remember the first slide. Too busy to improve. Ironically, their work, which is designed to support the process they cannot hear, prevents them from responding to operators that can hear the process and are randomly requesting support. A bad work culture is nothing more than operators shutting down. When they do not receive support on a regular basis, they shut down. There are always a few rare individuals that can tolerate being ignored. Most people cannot endure the disrespect, and they return the favor. When a management member states, we need to listen, this is key, we need to listen to the operator because we need buy-in. They cannot be more off the mark. They need to listen because they don't know what to do. The buy-in needs to come from above. That just means they don't get it when you hear that. Respect for people is important for profit. It is not a strategy because we are trying to be good people. We need the gray matter of the organization. We cannot expect to employ inspired people without respect. Respect for people is a strategic business. That's too many words that say strategy. It's a strategic business strategy. Respect for people. It's not a nice thing. The transition's difficult. There is much earned distrust on both sides. Organizations will always respond favorably. Leadership is key. I'm going to skip the test. I got one more slide that's really cool. The system described above delivers results. I learned this system and the leadership required from Bob Bowers at Sterling Heights Assembly. From an article, The Root, April 16, 2016. Modern Renaissance man, Hyundai's new executive, Erwin Raphael. This guy's in his 40s. He designed Chrysler 300. He's now the second in command at Hyundai. This is from the article. Erwin Raphael is U.S. General Manager for Hyundai's luxury Genesis brand. But Raphael notes that in some companies, people are unclear about their responsibilities and nothing gets done. At Chrysler's foundry plant in Indianapolis in 2001, he learned from African-American plant manager Bob Bowers how to harness the level of energy in a way that moves things along. I just discovered this article in April. I couldn't believe it. I've been talking about this guy all these years, and here it is. This guy's ready to take over Hyundai. And what does he talk about? That continuous improvement system. That's what he talks about. Raphael explains, expounding on a lesson that he says he learned then and still uses today. You got to assign responsibility and accountability to everything. That is key. Make sure there is a single person responsible for moving each needle, and that person needs to know they are responsible. Once you have that, people get things done. This is great advice for you in your career if you're managing. So here's your test. Please do that.